Welcome. Your camera is automatically off and you are automatically muted. You are allowed to start your video if that's more comfortable for you. If you want to share, you're also welcome to stay offline and just listen in. Participants can put in the chat, they can utilize the chat, and they can start their video. You do need to ask to be unmuted, and we've restricted everything else just to limit Zoom bombing, which we have had experience with. So I'm sorry to limit any engagement, but it's just to keep everyone safe and the space really focused on wildfire risk reduction. So I'll just say that again for those who are still connecting to their audio. Welcome, everybody. We have limited participants' interactions. You should be able to utilize the chat and turn on your camera. But otherwise, you cannot rename yourself or show the whiteboard or anything crazy like that due to past experiences with Zoom bombing. But we are excited to hear from you, and we encourage you to turn on your camera and use the chat. And you have a really amazing team of people here to lead us through a great conversation on how we can increase wildfire resiliency across Sonoma County. There's a list of some of the folks you're going to be hearing from tonight. First off, I'd like to invite Aldo to say a few words for our Spanish-speaking audience.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Aldo López y soy manejador de proyectos con Permit Sonoma. Más les quería informarles que esta presentación se ofrecerá en español en como en una semana en nuestra página web, pero si tienen alguna pregunta me la pueden dejar en el chat y con mucho gusto les ayudaré en todo lo que pueda. Muchas gracias. Yeah, Genevieve, back to you.
Muchas gracias. Okay, I think we will go to the next slide and it'll give you a quick snapshot of what the next 55 minutes have for us. Welcome and introductions, a quick overview. You're going to hear introductions from every person as they come. You're going to hear about our BRIC project, which is Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. You're going to learn about what you can do in your communities and on your property, and also about free wildfire risk assessments that we're offering in specific project areas, how you can sign up and how you can access that information. And we're really hoping that people are inspired to take action so that we can create more community-wide resiliency. So thank you very much for coming tonight. Next slide. It's my pleasure to introduce our Sonoma County Fire Marshal, Steve Mosiurchak.
Hello, everybody. My name is Steve Mosiurchak. I'm the Fire Marshal for the County of Sonoma. This webinar is for a target area of the Larkfield Wikiup area, which falls in the Sonoma County Fire District jurisdiction. We are doing 3 of these meetings, so there's 2 other target areas of this program that will come at a later date, and one is those for Guerneville, which is also part of the Sonoma County Fire District, and then one in the Rancho Adobe area, which is scheduled at a later date also. What we're going to be covering today is some of the roles and responsibilities for the collaborators. So collaborators are the fire districts, our state partners like CAL FIRE, and non-governmental agencies similar to Fire Safe Sonoma, and how that incorporates the assistance from residents, fire safe councils, Firewise, HOAs, and etc. Part of the goals today is to let everybody know how they can be empowered and to motivate residents to take charge of doing defensible space, understanding defensible space, also understanding structural hardening. These are 2 key components to structure survivability and protecting the communities and neighboring communities during a wildland fire. And this is also going to help everybody understand the resources that are available. Next slide. One of the things that the County of Sonoma provides is a free service to any resident in the County of Sonoma. So it's not just particular to this program and what this webinar is about, but we offer a free chipping service, which allows residents to create piles from doing defensible space. Our crews come in for free. It's a year-round program. You're allowed to sign up on an application portal online, which is the website down below. We have some very strict guidelines to follow, which makes it safe for our crews, makes it available for quick work of the hard work that the residents do on their property. So if you follow the guidelines pretty thoroughly, we will come out for free. We do about 2 hours of service and we do up to 2 chips per application. hopefully later on, starting next year, there won't be a limit on the number of applications and the number of times served per parcel. So it helps encourage even more service to those communities. If you have any questions, feel free to email us or call that phone number. But again, this is a free service and it is available to any resident in Sonoma County. So it doesn't matter where you are, we will come to you as long as you fill out an application and let us know you're ready. Next slide. And with that, we will hand it over to Robert Agaro.
Thank you, Steve. I'm Robert Aguero. I'm a grants program manager here at Permit Sonoma. So our Wildfire Resilient Communities program aims to promote whole community wildfire resilience in these 3 select communities of Ville in the Lower Russian River area, the Mark West Larkfield Wikiup community, and the Pengrove Sonoma Mountain community. This program aims to accomplish this through education, providing free home hardening and defensible space assessments, coordinating across agencies, and with the eventual implementation of home hardening, defensible space work on private property, in addition to wildland fuel buffers out in the wildland, in the forested area. Next slide, please. So this program is funded by a phased FEMA grant through the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, or BRIC. So our phase 1 is our planning, outreach, and assessment phase. So this phase concludes at the end of next September, and it is, like I said, it is active right now. We have assessors out in the field doing assessments. We're working with the fire districts and CAL FIRE to identify strategic fuel buffers, with the hope that in phase 2, we would be funding actual treatment work, including funding for home hardening and defensible space implementation. However, you may have heard that in April of this year, FEMA posted an advisory that they were canceling the BRIC program nationwide, while allowing certain projects like ours to continue in its current phase. However, FEMA is engaged in litigation on the status of the BRIC program, and we have not received official formal communication from the federal government that our grant has been canceled. However, to remain nimble, we are seeking other funding opportunities to cover the potential loss of phase 2 through other grants for implementation work. Next slide, please. Right now, the heart of what we're doing is our assessments. These are educational only assessments. They're not code enforcement inspections, and there's really no enforcement associated with this program. We're able to conduct curbside assessments from the public right-of-way, but would love to see more people sign up for full assessments where our qualified assessors would walk your property and identify potential fire risk vulnerabilities on your property and summarize it in a report that is provided free to you. These assessments are available at no cost to the property owner, so please sign up or tell your neighbor to do so you can get one in before the rainy season puts a pause on our assessments. Next slide, please. So now I'll hand it off to Caerleon Safford and our team of fire prevention experts.
Hello, all. I'm Caerleon Safford, and I am also a program manager at Permit Sonoma for our miscellaneous wildfire programs, and I work in the fire prevention division of Permit Sonoma. And I would like to introduce my partners in wildfire risk reduction for tonight, which are Ben Nicholls from CAL FIRE, welcome Ben, and Cyndi Foreman, the division chief and fire marshal for the Sonoma County Fire District, which covers the Larkfield Wikiup area. So welcome you guys, and we're off and running with the next slides. Cyndi, do you want to
I'll take it
jump
away.
on in?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Cyndi Foreman. I'm a division chief and fire marshal for the Sonoma County Fire District. And as been mentioned tonight, we are talking about a footprint that is not only in our fire district, but very near and dear to my heart. I've worked in this fire district for 25 years, and I have been through these fires with you hand in hand and neighbor to neighbor. So not only do I work in the district, but I also live and have suffered in the district with some of our catastrophic wildfire we've been through. Obviously, it's really easy to remember the year 2017, but it's not for all the right reasons. So that was when things in Sonoma County took a very dramatic change. And from 2017 fires, which were absolutely devastating. While they were shocking to us, it was history repeating itself, essentially. And when you look at the map on the screen here, it's actually a little hard to decipher, because what's critical to know about this is that the overlay of the 1964 Hanley fire and the 2017 Tubbs fire took the identical footprint, with the exception of that little leg at the bottom, which was Coffey Park. We do know that history can repeat itself, and lots of things have changed in that environment since the 1964 Hanley fire. While it's really tragic to have to talk about fire, if we don't step back and look at what has happened in the past and not prepare for a different future, then we're not paying attention. Some things too that have come a long way since these fires is your fire response agencies and the capacity. Essentially, throughout Sonoma County, there has been a very strong focus on building up our fire crew resources and being able to put more firefighters on the ground. And we've come a long way since 2017. A lot of that's been through grant funding. A lot of that has been through agencies allocating that as a priority within their budgets. A lot of that some of that is now actually, as we speak, changing Sonoma County's fire service through Measure H, which was a half-cent sales tax measure that was voted and brings in roughly about $61 to $62 million annually to be spread across the fire service here in Sonoma County. So those dollars are actually going to work in your neighborhood to put more firefighters on the ground, to get better fuel reduction programs, to get better resources to our firefighters, to put them in safer fire stations. We have fire stations, just our Larkfield fire station right now, likely could not sustain a major earthquake. It was not designed to withstand that kind of. So the infrastructure of our fire service is being massively invested in as well through some tax measure money and different avenues of bringing in revenue to focus that. And then current wildfire programs and efforts. Again, we have come a very long way. There is a program called Firewise, and that will be talked about, and there's links here in the program. But Firewise is essentially a very popular program in Sonoma County right now. It is a nationally recognized program, and it essentially brings neighbors together to look at the hazard and the hazard versus the risk, or risk versus the hazard in their communities, and how they can work collectively to, in their individual Firewise community, make them safer and more resilient to wildfire. It actually is a program that can bring incentives through your insurance company. So some insurance companies recognize it and offer a rate reduction if you are in a Firewise community. And it also gets neighbors working collectively together toward the common good of taking care of our environment, but also making sure that catastrophic wildfire does not take our community out again. So how can you help us? Am I over my time?
I was just going to offer Ben a chance to jump in. And
oh, thank you.
Because CAL FIRE really is in charge of much of the wildfire areas at risk in Sonoma County. Ben, do you want to talk a little bit about CAL FIRE, what you guys do, and what you guys do in prevention world?
Sure. No, thank you very much, Caerleon. And ultimately, as Chief Foreman put out there, what's predictable is preventable, right? So the Hanley fire and the Tubbs fire have almost an identical footprint. And as we saw in the LA basin here this January, they have a more regular fire return rate interval than we do. But we now have these identified wind corridors where we have the alignment of topography with those devastating offshore wind events that we see. And so we need to better prepare for those future fires that we know will repeat over time. And as Chief Foreman talked about with the bolstering of our local government partners here in Sonoma County, CAL FIRE and ultimately the state of California has one of the most robust and exercised mutual aid systems in the world that is the benchmark for other countries across the world to try to attain. But the travel time for resources to get from Siskiyou County or LA County in the event that we ask for help the Tubbs fire, as the example, was into Santa Rosa within 3 hours of the start of that fire. So those of you that have driven to San Diego, to LA, to Redding are well aware that you can't get there in under 3 hours. And so it's that critical work done by homeowners to harden their homes, prepare their homes, get that defensible space in around that home, basically providing the defense so that the resources that aren't enough in numbers to hit every home have the best chance of success, while the rest of the mutual aid system works towards our fire to assist our communities in time of need. So this work is absolutely critical. It's not as fancy as C-130 aircraft and latest and greatest night vision helicopters, but it absolutely makes a difference not only to your family and others, but it also helps firefighters that are at scene be able to more focus on controlling that fire and limiting its spread rather than dealing with the loss of structures. So thank you very much for having me tonight, and I'm happy to help out wherever I can.
Great, Ben. Yeah, jump in anytime you have additional comments on anything we cover. And just so you know, mostly what we're going to be talking about today is protecting your home for wildfire, which primarily pertains to the area closest to the house, 0 to 5 feet and out to about 30 feet, and the structure itself. And the reason we're doing that is that we have learned so much in the last 10, 15 years about the specifics of the science that tells us what catches houses on fire. What is it that actually causes that to happen? And what we've really learned is that the biggest risks are near to the home and on the home. And so rather than focusing in the larger area, we're really trying to make this more doable for folks by focusing in on the most important thing that can probably save your home. Many of the solutions that you see on this slide, some of them have what I call hacks, ways that you can reduce the vulnerability without completely replacing your roof. So we'll be talking about some of that and also pointing you to some resources where you can learn more about what those are. At the end of the day, it is really up to each of us as individual residents of our beautiful county to harden our homes and create that defensible space. Home loss is not only a personal and economic tragedy for some folks, it's an environmental catastrophe as well. And there are so many things that we can do to stem the loss by treating some of the things that are showing on this screen. So I'm really hoping that we can build a countywide culture of resilient structures so that we can move into a future which is likely to be characterized by wildfire. It's not going away without the losses that we've seen. So help us help you get started on that voyage. And thanks for coming tonight, because that was a good first start. All righty, defensible space. And this is where Ben and Cyndi, you guys can jump in. So I'm just going to start really quick and just say Zone 0, which is new to, it is soon to be part of California Public Resource Code 4291, which is the law that defines rules around defensible space in the state responsibility areas. Before, we didn't have anything specific to that Zone 0 area in defensible space code. We've been working on developing that code for, I don't know, 3 years now, and it's finally coming up to being part of the code. And the reason that it came to the code is that the science is so definitive on how well it works to have that 0 to 5 area as non-combustible as you can. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that. Zone 1 goes from the house walls or the edge of your deck, if you have one, out for 30 feet. So that's Zone 1, and Zone 1 and Zone 0 are the most important again. And Zone 2 goes from 30 to 100 feet. And there are regulations in defensible space, and should you do that? Yes, you should. But work in zones. Start with Zone 0, move to Zone 1, and then start focusing on Zone 2. Cyndi or Ben?
Yeah, I think a really interesting piece of that Zone 0 is combustible fencing that went from structure to structure. And one thing that we saw very definitively in the Tubbs fire in particular, and Coffee Park just is the one that comes to mind for me, is there was home to home ignition, and there was video of it going from home to fence to home. And so that's in that piece of that zone 0. And we have not only scientific data and proof that is definitively help save structures, but we actually all witnessed it. Many of us out on those nights witnessed
And
that.
we do have a slide with some pictures and stuff in a little while. So we will get back to that critical fence issue. But right now, let's launch a quick poll. I'm curious to see what you guys think about your defensible space on your property. And so we have a poll that someone will launch for you, and it's real quick. No, there's no wrong answer. And nothing bad will happen if you say, oh my gosh, I'm really not done. There we go. So if you can just super quick pop on one of those options. It's interesting. I'm not seeing, I have a lot of work to do. That's great. Yeah, this is good.
It's about 61% if everyone wants to put in their final answer.
As they put that information in though, Caerleon, it's one of those things that there's a lot of folks that think they've got it all squared away, but it's that mulch up against that side of the house. It's the things we've accumulated that
Right.
be the traditional things we think about, but that's absolutely what's going to create issues downstream.
And that is, we'll be talking more about that moving forward too. So I think we're good. I think we've got the people who wanted to respond. If anybody has questions about the poll, put it in the chat and Adrian will get back to you. And share results. And there are the results. Okay. All righty. The next thing we're going to talk about really quickly is home hardening, which has long been my primary passion in life because the science of home hardening was so fascinating to me when I was first introduced to it 25 years ago. Home hardening is really about zone 0. That's part of your home hardening. But the elements of home hardening as identified are the roof, the vents and the openings, wooden attachments like Cyndi just talked about, the fence, the pergola, the windows, which are vulnerable, and we'll talk about that, and siding, which is the first thing people always think of, but it's really not as critical a retrofit as some other things are. So we'll be discussing all of that moving on. And I also have the other thing you have to realize about both of these things, and we'll be talking a lot about this moving on, is that it's all about embers. But as of now, we can throw up, I believe, another poll. There we go. We have a second poll to ask you, what do you know about home hardening? And do you feel like you got it?
Hi, just let me launch the poll and nobody else click anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you take the polls away too?
I can do it all. We
Okay.
all can do it all, but it's better if just one person does it.
There we go.
Thank you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Caerleon, you have about 10 minutes
Okay.
on your section.
I know we got to go faster. Okay, so this is great to see. This tells me one thing that's really important, which used to be that when we launched these, when we started talking about structure hardening, no one even knew what it was. And I'm seeing that most people now know what it is, and more people have started working on it than haven't. And it is hard, and I understand. And this is really good to see. Let's move on, and we'll circle back to some of this in a little while if we have time. But the thing that I really want to talk about now is embers, because embers are the thing that really cause approximately 90%. I've seen statistics running from 80 to 90%. So I take 90, and that's what I believe. And I think those who have been in the field a lot will concur that the embers blowing around during the wildfire are what are igniting more homes than any other. And so they're what we should be thinking about when we're thinking about hardening. And this is an old and fuzzy, but really awesome video that I love to show. I think this was shown with a video camera the size of a Volkswagen CDF. This is way back in the 80s or 90s, probably. Fires, firefighters. What was that? That was a broom that was under this deck, under the wooden deck, surrounded by combustible materials. Now, if those firefighters had not been there, that broom that you just saw ignite definitely would have burned. There's almost no question about it, right? Because there was a ton of combustibles right there. So we have a very small ember landing in a very receptive fuel bed, which is all the bristles in the broom, burning up. It's going to catch those chairs that were next to it on fire. Embers are the thing you need to think about more than anything else as you move around to do the walk around your house and look at what you should be doing. So think small. We're going to talk about a lot of those things really quickly, but I can't tell you enough. Think small. Think of a thing the size of a pea, because that's what most embers are. All righty. Let's see. Cyndi, why don't you run through mulch and plant? Ben, if you want to, you can talk about plants, or I can, and I'll talk about stuff.
She's the plant person, but I think I'll definitely jump in and talk about mulch. Caerleon just said the two things that I try really hard to express to our communities, and that is the concept of what's a receptive fuel bed. And she just made it crystal clear. A receptive fuel bed is our stuff for sure, but it is also what we choose to use for landscaping on our property. And while we think we're doing a good thing for erosion control and drought and all of those things, actually we can be compounding the fire problem on our property by trying to fix another problem. So I think you have to be very careful and critical if you are going to use mulch or ground cover about where that goes and what that separation, certainly not within that 5-foot range, and frankly should probably not even be in zone 1 unless you're able to have some concrete pathways or things that can break that up. We're not saying that mulch and that isn't good, because it is. It's a critical piece of drought tolerance and erosion control and all those things. Just have to be very careful with it. And some communities, including Santa Rosa, has an ordinance about gorilla hair in particular. And gorilla hair is that sort of shredded type of ground cover. And there are areas that they absolutely, and is that what that picture is there? Yeah, that is absolutely not allowed. Have to be really responsible and careful. Putting it under combustible bushes and plants, not a good thing, because it acts as that receptive fuel bed and then burns up into the base of the tree or the plant or the bush or whatever it may be. And then these start becoming ladder fuels. Ben, you want to?
So we're talking plants, Ben, within zone 0. So state of zone 0 legislation on plants, and I can jump in anytime you want.
Sure. So I'll just put it out there that the Board of Forestry is still working through that process to officially enact what that's going to look like when it's said and done. As Caerleon's got on the slide there, the insurance industry is already there. So a lot of homeowners are already dealing with that to maintain their home insurance. There's a lot.
Just so you know, the legislation is going to allow some plants in zone 0 in that area within 5 feet of your house. Your insurance company may not. So just be aware of that as you're planning and moving forward. Sorry, Ben.
No, it's all good. I listened into their last meeting. To Caerleon's point, there's a lot of back and forth on what's okay to be in there and what's not. The department CDF, before we were CAL FIRE, had a published list of plants years ago. we haven't done that, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about those catastrophic fire conditions, ice plant burns. So it's one of those things where it really is taking care of you. And I understand the lift that it's going to be for most homeowners, my wife included. Just, she still is challenging me that really we're having to get rid of everything in the within 5 feet of the house. But in order to make sure that our home is standing post fire, that's what we need to do as landowners and homeowners to make sure that we're doing our part. I'll turn it over to you, Caroline.
Chief,
Yeah,
Chief, just to echo that comment, I have that same battle with my husband. So
I don't want to brag, but I planned on this 10 years ago. So I didn't have to have the argument. And that was why. But really briefly, we didn't touch on, if you are going to maintain plants in your 0 to 5 space, make sure they're not under windows where they can expose the window to heat, or near vents where they can cause flames in the house. And do trim those trees off the roof. Stuff, when I'm out doing an assessment, typically I see more problems with stuff than anything else. There is so much stuff, and we all have it. I have it. We all have it. But you really need to walk around that, especially in that 0 to 5, start there and take a very critical eye to look for anything that, if a hot thing fell on it on a windy day, would this thing ignite? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, move it, get rid of it, or put it somewhere else, farther away. Especially garbage cans, we see a lot of those. They will burn, as this kind of funky image shows you.
hey, Caerleon, really quick, I think that's just a good piece, and I think it gets talked about here tonight. When we go into red flag warnings, maybe that's the time that you bring in the cushions on and the wicker furniture on the deck. That's the time you pick up the floor mat that's made out of straw. Those are those kind of days, those high wind days, those red flag days. Doesn't even have to be a red flag, but there's days when there's potential and it's that risk, right? So bring the stuff inside, clean up around the house. That's just a great opportunity. Thank you.
And having this 5-foot area identified in which to do that makes that so much more doable for everybody. You can do your 5 feet. So there we go. Fences. Speaking of Coffee Park, this is a photograph which was taken by a Marin County firefighter who was up here on that night. And you can see the impact that this fence is having moving that fire forward. So yeah, fences, and all you got to do is replace that 5 feet. This second image of the fence is from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety Fire Lab, which is in South Carolina. They catch stuff on fire and see what it does. And you can see that 5 feet is enough to stop exposing that structure. And we have another video of that in a little while. Decks are a huge problem. Decks are vulnerable. Often structured, the fire on the deck often starts from something that is on the deck, an item. So this is another place to be very careful with the kind of furniture that you leave out there. If you can choose non-combustible furniture, take those cushions in, don't leave the bag of charcoal, don't leave flammable items on your deck. You can do a lot. Don't store things under your deck, and keep it really clean between all the deck boards, because all the stuff that piles up there between those deck boards creates that receptive fuel bed that can take an ember and start the deck to burn. So just keep it clean on top and below. Don't leave flammable stuff on it. Other attachments to the house that are really common, we all have stuff. We tend to put them in wooden containers right up against the house, wood piles, pergolas, trellises with plants growing on. These are all risks that should be removed from that 0 to 5 foot zone.
Caroline, one thing I'd love to add to that is that it doesn't have to be wood. I'm guilty, just so many others, that I have the Home Depot plastic shed
Yes.
that is up against the house. And so it's that eddying opportunity for that leaf material blowing before the fire ever gets to the house that accumulates in that corner between the shed, the add-on structure to your building and your home, that then gets enough heat going and fire going that it gets that shed, in my case, burning, and it takes the house.
And envision again that picture of the garbage cans here. Once they get going, they can actually make some pretty significant flames. So plastic is not a fire-wise material.
And little known fact that I use all the time, it only takes 300 degrees to melt plastic. You don't have to have thousands of BTUs to melt plastic and make it liquid. It's 300 degrees starts the process.
And not only is it now melted and dribbling out along the ground, everything in that shed is now vulnerable to ember exposure as well. So definitely think about that. Roofs. What happened to roofs? Huh, they're there. A roof is a really important part of your wildfire component. Most of us in California do have Class A roofs. What a Class A roof is that the covering and the stuff that's under the covering, the underlayment, is all things that have been tested to be fire resilient. A roof is only Class A as long as the box of roofing material said it was Class A. So if you bought a 20-year roof, in 20 years you need to replace it because it's no longer Class A. If you don't know, get an inspection and see what a professional says. But I can't emphasize enough the importance of having an intact roof, keeping the gutters clean and the roof clean during fire season, which is a huge challenge for some of our county residents. But do think about replacing that. The vulnerability of windows is that fire glass fails at a fairly low temperature. Tempered glass fails at a much higher temperature, so it'll take much more exposure to heat. So the building codes in California now ask that if you're in an area at risk to wildfire, which every one of us is, you have two panes, at least one tempered, which almost doubles the amount of heat that that window can take. And when you have the double pane, if the first one cracks, the second one will probably stay good. Now, the reason I added these pictures is that this was a house fire. It was in July out in the Forestville area. And this little red circle that's over the house represents the window that you see in the larger blowout to the right. And you can see that the radiant heat exposure from the house, which was here behind the red tape, and the movement into those redwood trees was enough to crack that window. That was a dual pane window, so it was not a disaster. But don't underestimate the power of windows. And if windows break, embers can fly into your house, and that's a big problem. Windows can be replaced using Sonoma County Energy Independence Program. They don't like to call them loans. It's a lien on your property that you can get. There is interest, but they will pay for a whole bunch of wildfire resilience improvements, including windows, roofs, zone zero. So if you're interested, definitely check out what they can do to help you.
Caerleon, I'd like to say two things. One is on Skype. I just found out last week that they are only going to help with residential projects through the end of December. So come 2026, they will not be an option. And then the second thing is, do you want to skip right to the video so that we can talk specifically about what's being found in Larkfield Wikiup?
Citing, super quick.
Okay.
This
Thank
is
you.
the same photo I just showed you because I wanted to show you that heat was enough to crack the window, but this very vulnerable cedar shake siding wasn't impacted by that radiant heat. That is a really good way to show that distance of radiant from any stuff of siding from radiant heat or direct flame is really important. Many of the vulnerabilities of wooden siding can be controlled with zone 0 and reasonable zone 1. So if you can't afford to replace your vulnerable wooden siding, just focus on your zone 0 and your zone 1, and you should be pretty good, unless your siding looks like the picture in the middle, in which case you might want to get on that. Okay, here we are. Does this work? Well, I think this shows pretty well that it does. This was a burn that CAL FIRE did in conjunction with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, where they built 2 houses, one with vulnerable siding and vulnerable plants and a wooden fence next to the structure, and one that had a 5-foot non-combustible zone and was built with hardy or a non-combustible siding product. So you can see the fire getting into that mulch, which the right property doesn't have, exposing that fence. The fence has really taken off. Now that fence is burning the house. The bushes and the mulch on the side, you can see they're getting some pretty substantial heat. These things make a big difference. And we can do this. And if we do this, do what you can, when you can, one step at a time, I've been working on it for 25 years and I'm almost, but still not completely done. But I feel good enough about it to move forward, but I can't recommend enough. We have a link later to this wildfire retrofit guide, which is a great place to look. Okay. I don't know. Oh, that was what just happened. Okay, so we go. All right, here we are. So what did we find in our assessments in your neighborhood in Larkfield Wikiup? We found that 7% of homes had vegetation in the zone 0, a lot of combustible mulch, a lot of trees that need limbing, especially from over the roof, combustible doormats, 7%, garbage cans in zone 0. So these are the things that we really need to focus on moving forward. For home hardening, combustible fence, 41% of the homes in our inspection areas had a wooden fence attached. This needs to be a community-wide incentive program in many areas. Siding, eaves, unenclosed eaves, vent screens, and non-resilient windows. So we're making progress, we're moving forward, but our assessments have found that we still have work to do. So there we go. I am now passing over to our awesome collaborator at Permit Sonoma, Kate Wan, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about the assessments and stuff.
Okay, we've just heard from 3 experts, and thank you for that. There is so much to learn about home hardening, defensible space, and how to help your home survive. So just take it a little bit at a time. Learn what you can, do what you can each year. Each year, the science gets better, our knowledge gets better. So one of the things that our grant has offered is a free full assessment. And we started out by sending everybody a letter in 3 different areas, project areas for our grant. And those people they responded and said, yeah, we want a full assessment. And then we went out to do curbsides, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But this information and education being the key, it starts with understanding your own property's vulnerabilities. And one of the best ways you can do that is to sign up for a full assessment if you haven't already had one, and to check out resources like this Wildfire Home Retrofit Guide. There's links to other resources in this program. There are links on our website as well, and there are many. You can just start Googling with the terms we're using here, and you will find a mountain of information. But CAL FIRE, Sonoma County, Marin County, we all have different resources up that really refer to great links to help you out, help you figure out what to do first, second, third. So next slide. So did you or did you not get an assessment? Some people called and said, what is this door hanger that I, received on my door? That was from the curbside assessment. So the door hanger was because somebody came by your house, took a look at it, gave you what they could see from the street, they evaluated and said, you do have some vulnerabilities or you don't. And here's a report. Here's a link to it on this door hanger, on this information sheet. And please access your report. And then if you want a full assessment, you can contact us and get that. So we've been trying to reach people we sent a letter out in June to about 4,000 people in the whole Larkfield, Wikiup, West Springs area. And we received several people responding to that, requesting full assessments. We did over 750 assessments where we had our assessors going door to door. Many of those got converted into full assessments because people were home. So that was a good thing, that the property owners had that option right there on the spot to go ahead, get that full assessment. And a full assessment is when somebody walks around your house with you. They have an iPad or a tablet and they're noting down, taking pictures and noting down information for you. And it generates this really great report. If you have not accessed your report and you had problems with that, you can always call this number that's on there for direct requests on the slide. And most likely you'll reach me or whoever is answering the phone at the time, or you can email that That should be WRC. That's an error there. Sorry. WRC@sonomacounty.gov. WRC. Let's get that corrected for next round and before we put that out there. So please note down, it's WRC@sonomacounty.gov. So let's go on to the next slide. And the fireside assessment software is this is something that enables our assessors to efficiently make observations with pictures and notes. There are other softwares out there, and the county went through a pretty robust selection process, but we chose this software because of its ease of use and the kind of reports that got generated. But there's some great other softwares out there. If you hear of them, go ahead, get an assessment from someone else. But this is what we're using here in the county to give you these free assessments. And this enables the assessors to make notes of many different things, generate a report, get it out to you quickly so that you can start responding. So this is, if you see information coming to you from Fireside, it's because there has been some interaction with the assessors. So just be aware that's the name of it, and that's how we would reach out to you. So next. So these reports that come to you, if you received a curbside or a full assessment, you will receive a link to your report or with a code. You go through the website, you access your report, it's online, you can download it. And if you're having problems accessing the report, and many have, I've heard of many who've had problems getting to their report, you can, again, call, or there's a correct email on the screen there. Call or email, and I'll get you some help, or I'll just generate it and send it to you. In fact, for anybody who hasn't already accessed the report, we're going to go ahead. Cyndi Foreman has helped us with a letter to send out to everybody with a courtesy copy of your report. So if you have questions about that, go ahead and call us, contact us, and we'll help explain it to you. So be sure to access your report, because that's where you start. It's finding out what is my home's vulnerability. So the report has a summary, talks about the defensible space issues on your property, talks about the home hardening issues that could be seen by the assessor on your property, makes some recommendations, and then notes a few of the good things that you have going already. Taking a look, what are the wildfire resilient items that you have already going for you on your property? It's good to know what those risk reductions you already have in place are. And then it comes out with a checklist of things to do. It helps you prioritize what might be most important to tackle. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So we have plenty of time for questions and answers. It starts, like Caerleon said, you start small. You start close to the house. Start with zone 0, start with home hardening, start with zone 0. Make sure those areas are taken care of. Take care of the easy actions first. You can't do it all at once. Some of the home hardening retrofits are expensive. You can't necessarily replace an old roof right away or old siding. That takes time and it takes some thought, but there are ways that you can do small pieces of it. If you don't have the money to do all of your siding, you could do maybe the bottom 2 feet where the embers might be gathering. So you can take it in little bite-sized pieces. So be clear about what you want to accomplish before you contact a contractor. You want to be sure you know what your priorities are. And this is where we come in, or other people who may have expertise in this area. Be clear about what you want. Then talk to a contractor or to whoever you're hiring about what you want, and make sure it is in writing. Write it down. Just even a handwritten list is sufficient to attach. And if you need to, you can take a look at that home hardening guide or some of the resources online and make sure your contractor knows how to do this stuff. Talk to them about it. Get that brochure out. They may or may not. Unfortunately, I talked to a woman who had paid a substantial amount of money for re-landscaping for a fire. They chose all these fire-resistant plants, but guess what? They planted them all right up close to the house on trellises. This was not a landscaper who knew what they were doing for fire hardening. So make sure your landscaper if you hire one, or a home hardening contractor, is really familiar with the laws, really familiar with the science. Show them the brochures and say, hey, are you familiar with this? So really ask them, make sure they're qualified. So we can help talk more about that with you. If you want to give me a call, I'll chat with you about that. And the contractors will, if they're licensed contractors, they'll know what to do. All right, next step, I believe, is, we're handing this back over to Chief Foreman and to Caerleon and to Chief Nicholls.
I'm going to actually step in real quick. Sorry. We've got about 5 minutes left, and we want to know that we value your time. So if you need to head out, we understand, but we won't be able to start the Q&A part until just after 7. And if you have put a question in the chat and you have to leave and don't get an answer, I will figure out how to get you the answer afterwards. So there we go. Thank you.
So if you put a question in the chat, and you have to go make sure that you put in your email address for Christine in the chat. Okay, so Cyndi, these were, I think, a lot of the things that you were interested people knew about.
Yeah, great point. And I think I want to leave this conversation and then dovetail into this piece here, but I want to leave this with, make your home defendable. You guys bring the defense, we bring the offense, but you got to give us a fighting chance. So make your home defendable, make your home accessible for us, make it somewhere where we can get in and make a difference and not put our people at risk trying to save properties, right? Because we make calculated risks every day. And so make your property a calculated risk for us that we can get in there and make a difference and save your home, but make it safe for us to get in and for us to get out. One thing that we really have to do is we really have to take our power back. And there are just a few of us and a lot of you. So the things that you can do to really make our jobs easier, and maybe not easier, but just to take your power back. And that is to make sure that you are registered for alerts, that you are tuned into what's going on in Sonoma County, and not just Sonoma County, but here's the piece. Remember, 2 or 3 of the last major fires we've had since 2017 did not come from Sonoma County. They came from Napa County. So we have to really stay tuned into our environment. Even when you are getting to be familiar with what your evacuation zone is, because everybody on here should know what their evacuation zone is. The big piece is know the zones around you, because if the zones around you go under a warning or an order, boy, I'd sure want to know about that. So it's not just about knowing, you need to know your own zone. It's very easy to go on SoCo. Is it SoCoemergency.com?
Yeah.
Yes. And you can easily get the link to take you to plug in your address, and it'll tell you what your evacuation zone is. Print it off, stick it on your go bag, put it in the notes on your phone. Make sure you know the one for your kid's school, for your work. It's not, the fires don't just happen when we're at home. So we have to make sure that we are aware of our surroundings in Sonoma County wherever we are. So get registered for alerts. Make sure you know your evacuation zones. Know the zones around you. There are resources like Watch Duty and Pulse Point and those kind of things that give you a little bit more intimate knowledge than we used to have. There's also the fire cameras, and those are very empowering for residents to be able to get on, click on the camera and see where that fire is at and see what it's doing. So there are a lot of ways for us to take our power back and stay tuned in right now in our county. So
Great. Thank you, Cyndi. I think that is all really important stuff. And another thing that you can do to empower yourself moving forward is sign up for our email list, and we can let you know what our progress is moving forward with the grant programs that the county will continue to work on. You can sign up easily for your full assessment. We only have mailing addresses for participants, so we can't, that's all we got. So we can't contact you if you don't give us your other more desirable contacts. So please sign up. I'm sorry, Christine, that was your slide, huh? All right.
That's okay. I don't mind.
There we go.
Adrian just put the form to sign up for updates, or it also gives you the opportunity to let us know what you want to know more about on that form. And so if you want to fill that out, great. We do have a couple of check questions in the chat. Peter Hoberg is asking for any recommendations for our Firewise community, which is Wikiup Hills, to help our residents address their home hardening challenges. Education, grants, contractors. They'd like to do something relatively quick and simple, and they'd like a base hit versus a home run. Cyndi, Ben, Caerleon.
I think we can all play off this. Peter, thank you so much, Peter. And Peter has been a champion in the Wikiup area in leading sort of a Firewise charge. And the irony, he's been a good sport because we've made this a pretty big footprint, and he is just so engaged and so passionate about this. So thank you, Peter. I want to recognize you for the community. With that being said, there are definitely ways that we can get everybody a little more engaged. And as far as funding to try to get some of these programs or some of these items addressed in the community, I think there's the struggle right now with what's happening with the federal grants. And so what we have to focus more on is there are local grants, there are state grants, there are opportunities locally to fund some of these things. And frankly, I have to be honest, your insurance companies are going to sometimes come in and say, you shall do X, Y, and Z, or we will not renew you. So I think you have to get creative. There are grants out there through state, I don't have the perfect answer for that, and maybe somebody else here does.
Yeah, I can jump in. My first thought is I think that really inspiring action education is the first thing, because I find that especially in terms of home hardening, people are so intimidated by it, and they're so intimidated by what they see as their home's worst vulnerability, which is their wooden siding. And that's when you have something that's big that you're that scared of, you tend to just back away. But there is so much you can do to mitigate the risk of wooden siding. And that's where the education comes in. And the other thing is really encourage it. Anybody in our grant footprint can get this free assessment, which will give them a list and an ability to talk with a person with a lot of experience in this field, talk to them about what the most important thing to do is. So those would be my things: education and pointing them out on a house-to-house level. The other thing I would suggest is start small. I would say that probably the easiest thing would be a vent program, where you just acquire a bunch of 1/8 mesh to cover the vent openings on all the houses. And you get people to sign up, and you get a local crew of volunteers to go around and just either retrofit or put up that better siding, but start small. Start with vents, start with 0 to 5, and don't scare them off with what a really significant project this is in the long run. Ben, do you have anything to add?
You took it right out of my mouth. The vents is the cheap, the most easily approachable part of that process. And as we saw in Coffee Park and so many other places, that it's the airspace into the underside of the house and into the attic space. And I too need to retrofit because my roof line is allowing material to get in during the various fires. And luckily it wasn't burning when it came into my attic space, but definitely a very lucky person. So that screening is absolutely critical. And then obviously that process of trying to remove the flammable material out of that 0 to 5, especially some of the drought tolerant plants that are designed to go long periods without water because they have a waxy material on their leaf structure that helps keep that moisture in. So getting that out away from the house is a great start.
Yeah, and as Caerleon taught me many years ago, any plant or tree that has an odor or an oil it burns very well, shall we say.
The big word is pyrophytic.
I was going to say that, but I knew I was going to not pronounce it correctly.
Fire.
And you would correct me.
I thank you for the simple language, Cyndi.
Yeah,
Thank you.
right. I just like that word. It's one of my favorites.
Nice. I know the word, but
smelly. anything that's strongly smelly, like rosemary, lavender, bay trees, and has a papery bark is also another symptom often of a highly flammable plant species.
Horrific.
The pyrophytic.
See, I knew it. That's why I didn't say it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there was a quick question about door mounts, which
Yeah.
take them inside. If on red flag, you can do that. There are wired door mounts available, which probably wouldn't work great in the winter, but they might do the job in the summer. But I just moved my doormat off of my front stoop because I'm not as worried about tracking dirt in this time of year as I am during the mud season. So that's, you can just move it away, but definitely think about where you're putting it, because if you think about those bristly, brushy things with a bunch of embers landing on them, and where are they? They're usually in front of, say, your sliding glass door, which is highly vulnerable to the heat that will come off if that thing starts to go. So they are a vulnerability that you either have to be ready to move, which assumes you're home, or you move away for the summer. Move the mat away, not you.
Great. Thank you so much. Any last questions? All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening. We're grateful. We are all passionate about this information and think it needs to get out there. And I know that this is not new to at least several of you. I recognize names. So I know I appreciate you coming and learning more and getting the information more and more in your mind so that you can share it with your neighbors. So we're just grateful that you participated, and please let us know if you have any other questions, and we will pass them on to the experts if we are not the expert, but we'll pass that along and get that information to you as best we can. Thanks again for all of your time. Thank you for joining us. And we appreciate Cyndi and Ben and Caerleon and Kate and Steve and all of their expertise to help us be safer. So thanks and have a great evening. And if our team could stay on for a few minutes, that would be great. Good night, everybody.